Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. Please be seated, guys. Okay? So, congratulations, you're rich, or at least there's a very high likelihood that you are, okay? How about that for a starting point for our worship series on how to be rich, okay? Where does it come from? What's it rooted in? All of that. Hopefully something good and something scriptural. Well, yeah. So in 1 Timothy chapter 6, the scriptures we've now heard a couple of different times, both from the podium and through the video, that sort of manifesto for God's people. They get us there, or at least partway there. Paul's talking to his protege Timothy in this letter, and he's telling him, command those who are rich in this present world. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm reading through the scriptures or other messaging like that, I hear words like, those who are rich in this present world, and there's something mentally that kind of clicks, and it's like, tuning out. Like, that's not me. I'm not rich. Like, that's the other guy. That's the other family. That's the one with the bigger house, the fancy car that they pull out into the driveway and polish from time to time, perhaps. But here's the thing. You're rich, right? Very high likelihood that you are. See, we don't realize it day in and day out in life in the suburbs because we get this illusion amongst ourselves that everybody here is just simply protected and well-fed and all this kind of stuff. But I've been places in the world, and maybe you have too, where you're the rich guy, right? And so you're going around, the streets of Chihuahua, Mexico, or Nicaragua, or our teams have gone to Haiti and stuff from Prince of Peace, and you're encountering these people who are living joyfully, and they're living out of like cinder block homes, or more than that, like houses built poorly of recycled materials with very little square footage, no running water, no plumbing, and they live joyfully in this context, and you sort of envy the joy that they have in the midst of this nothing of material reality. So we've been there, but see, so we're reminded in those moments that we are, in fact, that most of us are richer than most of the people in the rest of the world. Have you guys ever done a reality check for yourselves and gone out to globalrichlist.com? I recommend it if you're looking for a reality check, okay? globalrichlist.com. What it does is you can put in your annual salary, your household income, and you can find where you land among the world's elites, okay? So, James, take us there, man. USA dollar, okay? $32,000 a year. Where are we at? What? If you earn $32,000 a year or more, you, my friend, are among the 1% on the planet. $32,000 a year. That's crazy talk, right? You don't think of yourself that way, but it's true. See, Global Rich List, they'll continue and go down, and they'll do more comparisons with other parts of the world based on different aspects of life. Crazy, right? More than $32,000 a year, you are very rich by the world's standards, okay? So, question for you is, if this is the case, that we are in this place in the planet, why are we not like jumping up and down, like throwing daily celebrations like, woo! Yeah! Jackpot! Like, why do we not live that way? Chances are because we're feeling the side effects of wealth. See, the scriptures remind us that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. It's not the actual possession of material possessions. It's not having stuff, but it's what happens. It's how that wealth acts on us and our hearts as we possess it. wealth has side effects. And so we feel those side effects, and it puts a damper on a whole lot of things, right? So number one, rich people confuse being rich with feeling rich. Number one, side effects. So you can actually have a good paycheck and you feel as though you got nothing. You know, I have experienced different times in my life where I've felt rich. Think for yourself when that may have been for you. For me, it's like I can go back to like high school and say, like, I'm living with my parents. I got a job with my grandpa earning $15 an hour painting houses. Woo! Right? Big time money. Like most of my friends were making like $6 or $7 an hour in fast food or other kinds of things. And so it was like big time. And all of a sudden, these grandiose dreams of stereo systems and all this kind of stuff came into play because I felt rich. Like, I wasn't rich, but I felt it, and that's because I had margin. I had that comfortable space between what my expenses were and what my income was, and so I felt like I was just in a great place, right? So margin is the key to feeling rich, to feeling like you're secure, having that comfortable space between what you bring in and what you send out, what you spend, right? So I guess the moral of the story there is if you want to feel rich, get a part-time job and move in with your parents, right? So how about that? Pastor says. So the reality is some of you are living rich and you don't feel it. And so the key here is to downsize until you have margin, right? And so there's actually a class that we offer periodically around here that teaches you how to have margin. Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. It's not just taught here. It's taught all around the country, and you can search for it if you're kind of going like, I need to learn this. So we will be offering it here at Prince of Peace in January, but it teaches you how to have margin. It teaches you how to live within your means. It teaches you to be a good manager of what God's provided you and everything. And so, purely from the standpoint of financial peace that you can feel as you manage your household. And that's the angle. It can relate to somebody who is getting ready to go off to college and embrace the reality of like college student loan debt. It can be good for newlyweds or for singles. It can be good for newly divorced or widowed folks. It can be good for those who are looking toward retirement and trying to establish savings. So whether you're trying to dump debt or get some established savings going on, Financial Peace University, great thing. So I do not get paid to say that, just to be clear here, all right? Just so you know. It's just a really good course. My wife and I took it, and it was game changers for us. So, okay? So there's sort of this aspirational thing behind it, and Paul captures it well in Philippians chapter 4, right? This is what we want to be able to say and to live like in our lives, I think. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. And then that famous verse from Paul, I can do all things through him who gives me strength. It's not talking about like dunking a basketball or this kind of stuff. Like I can, endure various realities that the world throws at me through him who gives me strength, right? So and this segues into the next side effect of wealth, right? Rich people are plagued by this brooding sense of discontentment, right? Brooding sense of discontentment. The more a person has, the more they want. The more you or I have, the more you or I want, right? And so it becomes like this one-word appetite that continues to work on us. More, right? And so we get into these cycles of newer and nicer, all right? You feed the appetite and it grows more. And the thing is, it erodes your sense of margin, your sense of well-being, your sense of peace in the world. And so next thing you know, like, you're a rich person who is feeling pinched financially. Now, can you imagine earning what you earn in your household and going to a third world country on a mission trip, or going down the street to supportive housing, and taking on some resident there as your counselor and telling them about your woes? Like, you will not believe the amount of pressure I feel to make ends meet in my job and with my household. It is killing me here. I mean, you'd feel kind of ridiculous, wouldn't you? Like, you feel kind of embarrassed to be talking that way, and yet we embrace that disjunction in the way that we think and feel about ourselves, right? So, if you can relate to that kind of a thing, then I'm going to tell you that I think what your problem is that you are rich, but you're just not very good at it. Maybe no one ever taught you, or maybe you know the lessons full well and you're just not listening to them right now in your life. Something else, some other voices have crept in that are really driving things. God urges us, godliness with contentment is great gain. Godliness with contentment is great gain. There's a popular fallacy going around right now in the church in America called the prosperity gospel, where it is like, you give seed money to a certain mission initiative or church initiative, and all of a sudden it'll pay dividends for you, that God will bless you financially through that. That could not be further from the truth. God does not bless in that way. He doesn't promise anything resembling that, but what God's word will lead you into is to learn how to be content in the pursuit of godliness in your life. He'll show you. He'll give you the ability to be deeply content and at peace with what you have and who you are, in a way that nobody else can, really. Another symptom of this whole brooding discontentment in our culture and within our own lives is this habit of upgrades, right? You notice this? Like, the suburbs are built on this, really. Like, my wife goes out to Arlington Heights garage sale page, and there is a whole catalog, could fill many warehouses with things that people are getting rid of that are perfectly good things. Like, they bought them and they're not using them, and now they're giving them to someone else. See, this is stuff that rich people do. They take something that is perfectly well functioning, but just is old or unwanted or unused, and they give it away. We do this, right? This is just kind of a known entity in our culture. But if you think about it, like, we step back and we look at that pattern of behavior. Like, if you have ever had like a car that is just old and getting well along in miles but still functioning well, and you trade it in for a newer, nicer one because it might be more dependable or any number of motivations for that, like, that's a sign that you're rich. Do you know that? Like, it is. And so realize that, and it can come as good news to you to realize that you have this kind of margin, that you have this kind of financial resource available to you. This whole upgrade stuff, I think, kind of helps explain why in our world we have things like people earning multi-million-dollar annual salaries and declaring bankruptcy. We go like, how can this happen? How can you get into this kind of situation? Well, newer and nicer, more and more, right? And so all of a sudden you're beyond your means. What a deep contrast to what God urges and invites us to. And again, from that manifesto of a video that we started out with, but if we have food and clothing, we'll be content with that. We'll thank God for that. beyond that, Paul gives a warning. He says, some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. Right? Note the direction here. Pierced themselves with many griefs. In other words, the pursuit of wealth as a form of security is a strange form of self-inflicted punishment. Pierced themselves with many griefs, injured themselves in the very pursuit, and with that sense of misplaced hope, right? And so note here, some people eager for money have wandered from the faith, and so it's identifying that this is a challenge not just for the world out there, but that this is right in the center of God's church and his people. This is the war. This is one of the struggles that we embark on in the living out of our faith, is finding the balances in how we relate to money, how we relate to what we have, how we relate to what God's given us. And so the third, so wealth has side effects, and the third one is rich people often suffer from migration of hope. What does that mean? Well, it means ultimately that wealth becomes a substitute for God. Over time, it kind of happens to you and it creeps up on you. Wealth becomes the thing that you rely on and look to for the security that God promises to provide, right? So Jesus spoke to this particular struggle, right? He says, no one can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and money. They're going to be at war with one another for your heart, for your life, if you think about it in that way. So at the crux of this whole thing, as we get started, as we recognize ourselves as rich people who perhaps are plagued by some of the side effects of being rich, is this. How much money would you need to feel safe in this world, as though you were protected from any particular thing that might come along and jeopardize your future, right? How much would you need? Now, I encourage you to think about that for yourself and answer that for yourself. But my guess is, no matter where you're at, no matter what tax bracket you fall into, your answer to that is on some level more than what I have right now. More than what I have right now, because it'd just always be nice to have just a little more. And it'd always be nice. And it just always is nice. And so we need to be reminded, we brought nothing into the world. We can take nothing out of it. See, we as the people of God, we're called to live in a set-apart way. When we're suffering the effects of wealth, especially this migration of hope, then all of a sudden, wealth is looked at not as something that like God gave to me, even the ability that I have to work and earn a paycheck, the job that I currently have to provide for my family, that all of that ultimately, if you peel back the layers, that's from God. We start to drift and look at things differently and go like, well, I have this job and that is my money and I need to keep it because you never know when you might need to use it, right? And so we drift in this kind of way, in the way that we relate to wealth, rather than kind of looking at it as God provided me everything that I have and I am, and so I am giving proportionally of what He's provided, just knowing that that's from Him, sort of as a sense of thanks, as a way of training myself, really, that this is not just mine, this is God's. From Him to me, and really through me to others, all right? We can also kind of fall back on reminders of God's grace, right? So 1 Peter talks about this. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In His great mercy, He's given us a new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade. Wealth cannot secure your hope and future. God intends to take that place in your life, and He promises in Jesus to give you the life that is really life. to secure your future, not just in this present reality that we find ourselves, but into eternity through Jesus, who died and rose again for you. Take that to the bank. Realize that. Own that. Be secure in that. Be formed by that. So, as we start out our Be Rich series, you're probably rich in this present world. So congratulations, right? You're probably rich, or at least we could say there's probably somebody else in this world that looks at you as the rich person, right? And so as we close today, I just encourage you, I pray for you that through this series, God would work in your hearts and draw you closer to Him, calling you to be thankful for what He's put at your disposal and making you an even better manager of all of it. And so as we close today, I just want to share with you a video about some people who discovered that they were rich, and they decided they wanted to be good at it. And so listen to the story, watch the story of Rich and Ramona Tyack and PATH, Palatine Assisting Through Hope.
My name is Ramona Tyack. I'm a Prince of Peace member. I became familiar with what the goings-on and the availability of the basement at Sanborn because I had kids go to Sanborn School for 15 years. I became friendly with a lot of the staff that worked here, and that's how in being in touch with the staff here at Sanborn helped us start this community closet, as well as joining with the PTAs.
My name is Rich Tyack. I am also a Prince of Peace member since 1986 or 7. We started PATH about 10 years ago in response to our work with the Palatine Opportunity Center. I went to the fair at Prince of Peace and met Kathy Mellon, the director of Palatine Opportunity Center. Talking with her, we realized the need in the community. A lot of situations came up of crisis where, kids, we were told, didn't have food, they didn't have clothing, families were homeless, and as a result, we decided to create PATH to give a better effort in helping these people in crisis.
PATH stands for Palatine Assisting Through Hope. We came up with that about 10 years ago when we started PATH. We just wanted to help local families. A Day of Giving event, where once a year over Thanksgiving weekend we provided donating clothing to families in need. We started the community closet. The first year we just started with donations, and then last year we started giving out clothes. We served about 500 people throughout the year last year, and this year we're hoping to double that by opening up a second evening. We try and provide new socks and underwear for children that come to the closet. Anywhere from kindergarten ages all the way up to high school ages. There are high school kids that come as well. We also receive donations from other organizations like Teens for Jeans. They donated I think almost 20 huge boxes of jeans last year, which jeans is one of the first things that go here. Okay. So jeans was huge. And then we just received another 170 jeans last week or 2 weeks ago. So that's just a huge need. And then Burlington Coat Factory has a huge drive every year, and we receive their donated coats as well. So, those are two big items that we always are looking for, are jeans and coats. Here at Sanborn School, as we have done in the past with the Day of Giving event, we're holding it from 10 to 6. You can sign up via our website, path-palatine.org. It should be on the flyers in your mailbox.